Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is chock full of a lot of things. Profoundly written characters, comic book-inspired visuals, deep-cut villains, music you can really tap your foot to. Oh, and Easter eggs, and other things you, I don't know, might have missed. With the sequels now official with that sick new teaser, I'd say it's time we take a journey through dimensions and check out, oh, I don't know, let's say like, 25-ish things you might have missed. Sure, let's do that.
It's a hell of a freaking light show. You're gonna love this.
I know my diehard Marvel brethren didn't necessarily miss this one, but just in case you blinked for 5 seconds, gotta start with the various Marvel Earths that make up the various comic continuities. We got Earth 616, the primary universe, then we have 1610, Miles' universe, as well as the Ultimate Universe, where the character originated in the comics. Then there's Earth 14512, a Japanese sci-fi inspired universe in which Spider-Man is essentially a mech suit piloted by a girl named Penny Parker. Earth 65 is Spider-Gwen's dimension, more on that in a bit. And Earth 8311 is populated by anthropomorphic cartoon animals, while Earth 90214 is basically just, what if all the superheroes debuted in the 20s and 30s and were like film noir characters or something? And they're all shown on Kingpin's little screen here for a brief moment, while the Collider is doing its, universe consolidation thing, whatever it's supposed to be doing. Bridging the universes, whatever. This Green Goblin here made a lot of folks go, wait, what? And that's understandable. Dude's huge. Norman's eating his Wheaties. And the reason for his immensity is simple enough. This isn't Earth 616. We just covered this right up top. Why this should be obvious. Anyway, Earth 1610's Green Goblin is a real ugly some gun. Speaking of Gobby, you can hear his scream from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in the scene where Miles is sneaking up on Spider-Man versus Goblin. It was added in by composer Daniel Pemberton as part of the score. Those suits in the Spider Cave are, of course, all based on actual Spidey suits. You got your Electro-Proof suit from Amazing Spider-Man 425. You got the modded out advanced suit from the video game, the Iron Spider, the Secret Wars suit, this weird one that could either be a Carnage reference or maybe just Scarlet Spider without his fun hoodie, the stealth suit from the Big Time story arc, the Mark I Spider Armor from Peter's fight with the new Enforcers in Web of Spider-Man number 100. Downright iconic cover art, by the way. And then there's this guy who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be the Webman costume, which is just like an inverse of Spider-Man when Dr. Doom tried to make a clone thing with a twin machine. It's very dumb. It was in Spidey Super Stories number 25. Although I have seen some people suggest it's Flipside 2099. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just a Webman joke, because Webman is silly. The Mark II armor that debuted a little after the stealth suit, and the caped costume from What If number 19. Over at Uncle Aaron's place, that's Community playing on the TV, specifically the episode where Donald Glover wears Spider-Man pajamas, which of course was a reference to his quest to play Spider-Man, itself an experiment to see how far a message could be amplified via social media. This shot was cited by Brian Michael Bendis as an inspiration for Miles' look in the comics, and of course, Donald Glover also played Aaron Davis, uncle to Miles, obviously, in Spider-Man Homecoming. And in a deleted scene, he even talks to Miles on the phone, whom he misses out on seeing because Spidey webs his hand to his car. Oh, Pete, you jerk. Dude had ice cream in the car for his nephew. Geez, come on, guy.
Come fix this.
2 hours. You deserve that.
I got ice cream in here,
You deserve
man.
that. You're a criminal. Bye, Mr. Criminal.
In Times Square, when Burrito Peter here is transported to Earth 1610, we get a whole bunch of slightly off posters to show that this is a slightly different world to ours. These include Hold Your Horses, a Seth Rogen vehicle that appears to feature him as a stoned horse jockey, Kitten Heels instead of, Kinky Boots, maybe? I don't really know Broadway musicals that well. Stage Spidey Reeve Carney did do a production of Kinky Boots, so I don't know, maybe that's a reference. Then there's From Dusk Till Dawn, the unmade sequel to Shaun of the Dead, which obviously got made here and not our universe, gosh dang it. And Hi Hello, a variation on the John Mulaney, Nick Kroll stage show, and a phenomenal Netflix special, Oh Hello.
Bam, that says, baby!
And I guess Inglewood is Hollywood in this universe based on this Planet Inglewood sign, which is, that's a fun creative idea. I feel like the obvious joke is to just make it Planet Hollywood Land or something as a reference to the old version of the Hollywood sign, but switching it arbitrarily to another city in that area is cute. The movie Baby Shower, presumably a sequel to Bridesmaids, also exists, which seems like something that should have happened in this universe, because, box office receipts. And the Blue Man Group is now apparently the Nightmare Fuel Group. Jesus. We also have this Mr. Tomato Head, which raises a lot of questions about the origins of that toy. Oh, and there's a poster for the Mary Janes, which is the band that Spider-Gwen plays drums for in her universe. And the New York Red Sox exist. And I just noticed the Romita Ramen sign, a clear reference to either John Romita Sr. or Jr. Senior Romita was a major Spider-Man artist, while his son is also a major Spider-Man artist. Apple really doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? There's also this sign that shows Stephen Curry became a pro golfer in this universe, and one that shows basketball player Blake Griffin as a baseball player. Oh, and there's, Jesus Christ, there's also an Il Giornale. Il Giornale? I don't remember how to say it. I'm taking Italian on Duolingo, and I don't remember how to say Giornale. Anyway, Il Giornale, which was a rival to Starbucks created by Howard Schultz before he became CEO of Starbucks. Now, that one's actually a really interesting story. Basically, Schultz already worked for Starbucks, but after owners Jerry Baldwin and Gordon Boker vetoed his pitch to sell Italian-style espresso drinks at Starbucks, he left to start his own company, Il Giornale, which is Italian for the newspaper, as well as being the name of an actual Italian newspaper, which I believe is what he based it on. Anyway, when Starbucks management decided to focus on another property, Pete's, they sold Starbucks to Schultz, and he rebranded his Il Giornale venture as, well, Starbucks. So yeah, that's the bare bones explanation behind this extremely brief reference that you've probably missed. Spidey also hits a sign for Coca Soda, which in this universe is just a, stand in for Coca-Cola. So there's also that. I don't have a fun historical anecdote about Coke, but, that's it's a funny name. In Miles' room, you can see the cover art for Chance the Rapper's mixtape coloring book, except the 3 is now a 4, because again, different universe. In Earth 1610, Chance the Rapper obviously released another mixtape before coloring book, meaning this might just be the superior universe. There's also this poster for Clone College, which is a fake sequel or revival series of the MTV show Clone High, which Spider-Verse producers Lord and Miller created in 2002 for a single season. It followed a bunch of clones of historical figures, including Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, John F. Kennedy, Gandhi, and Cleopatra, as they attend a high school dedicated entirely to young clones of historical figures. If you haven't checked it out, you should, because it's pretty much a perfect show outside of the whole getting canceled way too soon thing.
My abs are so firm you can grate cheese on them!
The Fuldsmerdorf, I don't remember, it's been so long since I saw this movie, the FLDSMDRF.
The Flintstone
Limited Reserve?
From Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, directed by Lord and Miller, also shows up in the Super Collider, which, who knows, maybe we'll get an Andy Samberg cameo in the next one, I don't know. There's so many references in this movie, Jesus. Oh, back to Peter B. Parker for a sec. He says that he once broke his back, which is one of many references to the Tobey Maguire version of Peter Parker.
My back! Oh, my back!
The broken back thing goes a bit deeper as well, as that line's inclusion in Spider-Man 2 is a direct reference to an injury he had sustained playing the character. The company Alchemax plays a large role in the film and is an actual fictional company in the Spider-Man 2099 universe, which means we've probably not seen the last of them, seeing as how he's back after his post-credits reveal in this film to feature more prominently in the upcoming 2-part sequel, which I am just so freaking, I'm gonna be honest, it's hard for me to make this video because I'm so excited for that movie that I just want to make a video about whatever the heck that ends up being. So pumped! So, here's a cool one that I know showed up in a bunch of articles back when the film came out, but just in case you weren't neck deep in Twitter think pieces back then, here it is. There are a ton of creative uses of animation throughout this film. Most obviously the use of comic book drawing and coloring techniques like the Ben-Day dots used to cheaply color old comics, here used to enhance the visual style and certain elements of the look. The filmmakers also chose to experiment with the frame rate. See, most films are shot and presented in 24 frames per second. That's why when Peter Jackson experiments with a higher frame rate, or you see a soap opera presented in 30 FPS, it looks a bit off. Or why motion smoothing is an actual crime against TVs across the planet. Our eyes are naturally trained from a century of film to see 24 frames per second and go, yep, that's cinema, baby. Well, in Spider-Verse, it was decided to animate certain elements at different frame rates. And no, Reddit warriors, it wasn't a cost-cutting measure. For Miles in particular, the reasoning was that they wanted to get across how inexperienced Miles is. He's a kid who doesn't really know what he's doing, so he's animated at 12 frames per second, which is most noticeable when he's swinging along with Burrito Peter later on in the film, when Miles actually takes on the role of Spider-Man and reaches the, ultimate point of his character arc. He suddenly switches to 24 frames per second. That's art. That's art right there. That's so good. Oh my goodness. Oh, details. And then is this Dr. Otto Octavius? Are these two siblings? Among Miles' sketches is this rough mock-up of Leopardon, the mech suit used by Takuya Yamashiro, the Spider-Man of Earth 51778, aka the universe occupied by the Japanese Spider-Man TV show, which has since become comic book canon thanks to the Spider-Verse arc and various other appearances. It's also just a fun, weird show. The number 42 appears at least twice throughout Spider-Verse, on the spider that bites Miles, and here when Miles has an uh-oh fall. This is a reference to the jersey number of Jackie Robinson, who of course was the first African-American to play in Major League Baseball. If you pay attention to the scene wherein Peter Parker is being pushed into the Collider's time energy blasty boys, you notice we get a look at all the other Spideys as they're being taken by the time portal. Just look at Burrito Peter's little tum-tum. When we get the flashback to Spider-Gwen's time, we see that her Peter Parker has scaly skin. This is a reference to that universe's Peter Parker, who takes on the powers of the Lizard. Oh, and there's all these Stan Lee cameos. The one that made us all actively cry upon first viewing is obvious enough, but he also shows up here as these two have their joint uh-oh fall, and he shows up in various trains throughout the film. Dude gets around, just like the real Stan Lee, I assume. He was a happily married man. What am I saying? Miles' phone contacts are also worth noting. You got B. Bendis and Sarah Pichelli, aka the creators of Miles Morales, as well as Ray Sean, aka the superhero Patriot, whom Miles teams up with in the comics. Jason Reynolds wrote the literal book on Miles Morales. Monica C. up here could be Monica Chang, which is a bit of a stretch, but she takes on the Black Widow mantle in the Ultimate Comics. No wonder his old classmates missed him. Dude, he's a popular kid. During the sequence wherein Kingpin sees variations of his wife and son, we get a brief shot of Sister Maggie and Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. There's also a blink and you'll miss it shot of a black version of his wife and son, which might be a reference to the Fox film version of Kingpin, who of course was played by the late great Michael Clark Duncan. If Miles' roommate looks familiar, that's because he's Ganke Lee, who is also Miles' best friend in the comics and was the inspiration for Ned Leeds in the MCU Spider-Man films. The post-credit scene, which again introduces us to Spider-Man 2099, and holy cow, I cannot wait to see him in Across the Spider-Verse. God dang! Oh, it's gonna be so rad. It's gonna be so rad. Anyway, that scene is also, of course, the highly memed dual Spidey shot from the 60s Spider-Man cartoon show. Specifically, it's from Season 1, Episode 19, To Catch a Spider and Double Identity, and finishing out on another blink and miss it reference. When Miles is being pulled down the train tracks, he passes a sign that reads Perry Joe, a clear reference to Aerosmith guitarist Joe Perry, who of course wrote the theme song for everyone's favorite animated Spider-Man show, Spider-Man, the Animated Series. Which, I mean, you know, for being super honest, the best show is Spectacular Spider-Man, but you know, that's a rant for another day.
And just when I was having so much fun being ignored.
Kind of side note, you notice how many Spider-Verse actors have shown up in the MCU now? You got your Catherine Hahn, you got your Oscar Isaac, you got your Brian Tyree Henry, you got your Mahershala Ali, and you most recently, you got your Haley Steinfeld. I don't know why I'm saying this in an accent. Here's hoping Post Malone is cast as, I don't know, Dupe?